show, Sisterhood. Thank you for being with me, Candice. Get ready to be showered with compliments. So I tried to pick just 3, otherwise we'd be here forever, me rambling on about how amazing you are. First thing I thought of is that you are very strong, and it amazes me how you just like hurdle all of life's obstacles without even, it seems like you just don't even blink. You're just like, you just keep moving, you just keep going. Nothing like stops you. The second thing is that you are fearless. Like, you never let fear keep you from doing anything that you want to do. Like, once you know what it is you want to do, you're like, okay, doing it. And you do it, which is also amazing. And the third thing is that you are hilarious. You look at life and you see everything with the possibility of it being hilarious and funny. And you just bring joy to people in like ways that you wouldn't even imagine. So I think that's also really great, your sense of humor and how you're able to just not take life too seriously, not take yourself too seriously, and you just bring laughter and joy into the people around you's life.
Thank you, Brittany.
Of course.
I'm glad you think I'm funny. I think I might only be funny within our family.
Although I guess I do kind of understand what you're saying. I think our family does have, I guess that's how it is with all families. Like, yeah, we kind of all have like a very similar sense of humor because we grew up together, so.
Yeah, it's not just inside jokes. It's like the type of things that we know we will find funny.
Exactly.
And there are things like, I'm like, you know, if Daddy was here, I would make this joke. But he's the only one who would find this funny, so I'm just going to not say it right now. Yeah. Because I'll just be disappointed that Daddy's not here to laugh at my funny joke.
So, you have 2 master's degrees? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, what are they in?
I have a master in liberal arts from St. John's College, which is basically a degree in reading books and talking about them.
Nice.
And then I have a master's in public affairs from the University of California at Berkeley.
What is the public affairs master's for?
So I focused on education policy. Mm-hmm. I went to get the degree because I wanted to transition my career from upholstery to education policy or education research, which is actually what I ended up doing. So I decided like the quickest way to get where I wanted to be was to go back to school. Mm-hmm. So while I was in the program, it's about public policy sort of generically or more broadly, but I made a point of taking classes that were specifically about education policy because that's the policy subject area that I'm most passionate about.
Okay. And what made you passionate about education policy?
When I was a senior in high school and I was looking at the opportunities in front of me, I felt like the world was my oyster. I could do anything that I wanted. Mm-hmm. I could go to college. I could not go to college. I could work. I could move. And I don't know where that belief came from, if it was like something that was born in me or something that was instilled in me. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like I had all the opportunities in the world. I just credit education with opening all these doors for me. Mm-hmm. And I think it's messed up that my mom didn't have those opportunities. I think it's messed up to a certain degree that our brother Matthew didn't have those opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I just saw, how education really changed my life for the better. Yeah. And B, how it was failing to do that for other people. Mm-hmm. And that seemed like a terrible injustice that I had to fix. And if I didn't fix, I would be like, I don't know, somehow a huge hypocrite because I'm the one who has the evidence that it works in a real personal way. Yeah. You know, I went to school with a bunch of very wealthy, fancy people, all of whose parents have college degrees and are doctors and lawyers and all of that. And that's not where you and I come from. Mm-hmm. I was the first person to graduate from our family with a bachelor's degree, and then definitely the first person to get a master's degree. And then when I was getting a second one, they were like, okay,
that's enough. Like, all right, now you're just showing off.
I'm getting it. So yeah, I feel like I have a unique perspective on the opportunities that education can afford, and I can see the inequities in the system where it's failing, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Especially in America, this like wealthy democratic society, the fact that we aren't giving everyone equal access to this very important public good. Not only important for like the well-being of individual humans, but important for the well-being of the citizenry, because in a democratic society, we all have to vote. And if we all don't, have the critical thinking skills we need to vote wisely,
Yeah.
then everyone suffers as a result of that.
Can you explain your current job and like what it is you do?
I'm an education researcher. I work for a nonprofit research firm, and there are lots of people who are interested in what does and doesn't work in education. And recently there's been a push to get kind of more scientific and rigorous about this does work and this doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so people hire our firm to determine that.
Okay.
They come to us and they're like, hey, we have this new thing. Does it work or not? And we say, I don't know. Let's see. And then we go collect evidence and then write reports. So that's a lot of the work. And then we also do some work with foundations, which are obviously private nonprofits. They often have some kind of like lens or angle or a specific population that they're trying to help.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll hire us to come in and basically inform their practice. Like they're investing lots of money and they want to know what's the best way to invest the money, which of their investments is yielding the best results, things like that.
What would you say is the biggest thing that should change in our education system?
I think the segregation of schools. Obviously, it has terrible consequences for the underfunded schools of Black and Brown students. And the fact that this is perpetuated for decades is like sends chills down my spine. It's really disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
It's super gross.
It is.
And embarrassing. On top of that, like, I went to a school that was pretty diverse by Texas standards. And as a result, when I went to college and then on to grad school and into work and into life, I felt better prepared and more confident interacting with people that weren't like me. I see people in certain situations who I can tell come from a much more like homogenous background,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have that like social fluency. And the world is just too like flat and connected for us to not be giving that to our students at this point.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So yeah, it just seems really dumb to separate. I mean, and it's not, no one is deciding we're going to put all the white kids in this school
Right.
and all the Black and brown kids in this school. It's a result of all kinds of things, including housing policy and systemic racism. But the consequence is Black and brown students are often severely underserved. And on top of that, there's a way in which white students are not getting this really, they're not underserved. I don't want to be,
Right.
I don't conflate it. But there's something that they need that they should be getting that they're not getting.
Yeah.
Because they're just sitting around with people who look just like them. And so they assume the whole world must be just like them.
Yeah.
The sooner we can convince all humans that the whole world is not just like them, the better off everyone's going to be, I think.
I also know that you love to travel. Why would you say traveling is important to you?
I'm really like privileged with the amount of traveling that I have been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, there's like so much more that I want to do. I've sort of like organized my life sometimes around traveling and traveling for long periods of time. Like I've lived in Germany for 5 months and I lived in Switzerland for 11 months. And I did a lot of traveling within those periods. I don't know, there's something good for me about taking a break from my real life and realizing how kind of like inconsequential I am.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds depressing, and it's a little bit depressing, but it's also liberating.
I know that you also like to create. I feel like it just kind of runs in the family. We all like to create.
Yeah, I mean, I started writing plays in undergrad, so I was writing all through that graduate program,
Okay.
even though it wasn't writing focused.
And what made you want to write plays?
From a very young age, I was into reading and writing. But it wasn't until like my sophomore year of college that I was like, oh, I could do these things together. I could write for the theater. And then once I figured that out, because I'm a genius, that's like was really what I wanted to do. And that's what I did until I turned 30.
You had a theater company for a while and you got produced some of your plays.
Mm-hmm.
What was your theater company?
Transient theater. We were a traveling theater company. It was fun. It was 2 years. It was also awful
Oh,
too.
really?
I mean, I'm sorry. It was the best, and I never want to do it again.
Right. That's fair.
It's hard.
You also said that you started your own upholstery business. What got you into upholstery?
Oh yeah, so when I quit theater, I didn't want to get a job like sitting in front of a computer, although that is ironically my job now, more or less, and I love it. So I guess I didn't know very much. For 5 years, I ran an upholstery company, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm in my upholstery studio now, so you can see I still have like a bunch of the stuff, and I do stuff on the weekends. And it's really stressful to do stuff for clients, like to work with really expensive materials, and you're like, okay, if I screw this up, I can't afford to replace this fabric.
Yeah.
So I'm happy just working for myself where the stakes are really low and for friends and stuff.
I'm just like amazed by how much you've already accomplished. Like, you're like, yeah, I have 2 masters. I had my own theater company for a while. I had my own upholstery company. Now I'm working with like the government kind of to like help our education system. So, it's just normal stuff. But yeah, well, thanks for being on the show. In the name of sisterhood, can you tell us about a time that a sister has done something that you would consider like an example of sisterhood?
I was thinking about this question because I knew you were going to ask it because I watched Janae's video. It's really hard to answer because I just have too many like good examples. Mm-hmm. But because I'm feeling so grateful for the job I currently have, I was thinking back about how I got that job. And basically, a long time ago, I worked at this theater as the box office manager, this like very part-time job. And I worked with this woman named Lauren. And we hit it off, even though we only like really worked together for like maybe a month. And then a few years later, I was looking for a way to get into education policy. And I guess I must have sent her an email. And she said, oh, you should talk to my friend, Sophie, who works for this nonprofit. So then I went and talked to Sophie, and Sophie got me an internship at that nonprofit or a fellowship or something. Mm-hmm. And then that introduced me to this woman, Hayin, who worked at that nonprofit, who became sort of my mentor. And then that woman ended up having gone to college with the woman who's now my boss.
Wow.
So with one person introduced me to one person. There was this like domino effect that led me to, one, like know all of these amazing women who are doing this amazing work, but 2, to have like this really amazing job and be engaged in work that I'm really excited about. So that's like, I think that she would be like, oh, but of course, that was like such a tiny thing. Right. It was such a tiny thing that had a huge impact on my quality of life. So I'm really grateful for that. And I think about how I can do that for others.
That's awesome. Well, you're amazing, Candice. Thank you so much for doing
I'm so proud of you, Brittany. I'm excited to see future episodes.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. And I love you.
I love you too.